Hey there, and welcome. Today, we're talking about something called new criticism. It's this pretty revolutionary idea that completely flipped the script on how we analyze literature. The whole concept? Maybe we should stop obsessing over an author's life and focus only on the words they actually wrote. Let's dive in. So, let me just kick things off with a question for you. When you're reading a book, a great poem, whatever it is, does the author's life actually matter? I mean, does knowing about their personal drama, their politics, or what they intended to write, does any of that change the work itself? This is the exact problem that a group called the New Critics set out to solve.
For a long time, literary analysis was basically split into two camps. On one side, you had people who treated a book like a historical artifact. To get it, you had to know everything around it. The author's biography, the social context, the whole shebang. But then this new way of thinking came along, arguing, no, wait, the text is its own thing. The only thing that should matter are the words right there on the page.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the core idea behind it all, a technique called close reading. Then we'll trace its roots back to England and see how it grew into a major American movement. We'll also get into what they called the two great fallacies, basically the big no-nos of this approach. And finally, we'll look at why any of this still matters today.
All right, let's get right into the heart of it. We're going to start with the absolute foundation of new criticism. This is the one technique that really changed everything, and it's called close reading.
So what on earth is close reading? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a way of analyzing a piece of writing by focusing only on what's right in front of you. The specific words, the sentence structure, the metaphors, irony, all the little nuts and bolts that make the thing tick. Anything outside of that, the author's diary, what was happening in the world at the time, all of that is basically considered irrelevant. My favorite way to think about this is to picture yourself as a detective. The text is your crime scene. You can't bring in rumors or outside chatter about what the author might have been thinking. No, the only thing that matters, the only thing that's admissible in your court is the evidence right there on the page, the words themselves. Okay. So where did this super-focused, detective-style approach even come from? Well, for that, we have to travel back to the 1920s to Cambridge University in England. A few thinkers there were trying to make the study of literature more rigorous, more disciplined. You might even say almost like a science. And there are two names here that are absolutely crucial. First, there's I.A. Richards. He really laid the intellectual groundwork. And then there was his star student, William Empson, who wrote this legendary book called 7 Types of Ambiguity. It was a total game changer, showing just how much complex meaning you could squeeze out of a few lines of poetry if you just looked closely enough. Richards' big contribution was really twofold. First, he made this key distinction. He said science uses referential language. It just points to facts in the real world. But poetry, he said, uses emotive language. Its job is to organize our feelings and attitudes. And second, he developed a method to actually teach this. He would give his students poems with no author, no title, no context, and just ask them, okay, what is this text doing and how is it doing it? Now, these ideas were already sparking a lot of debate in England, but they really, truly took over when they crossed the Atlantic and became a massive academic movement in America. Here in the States, the movement was led by a group of writers and poets known as the Southern Agrarians, including guys like John Crowe Ransom and Alan Tate. For them, this new, intensive way of reading was more than just a technique. They saw it as an antidote to what they felt was the cold, dehumanizing industrial culture of the North. Poetry was this special, unique way of knowing the world, and it had to be protected and analyzed on its own terms. And these guys didn't just write about their ideas. They were smart. They built institutions. Through these incredibly influential literary journals like The Fugitive and later the Kenyon Review, they managed to spread their methods all across American universities. And it worked. By the 1940s, new criticism wasn't some fringe theory anymore. It was the mainstream, dominant way that literature was taught. Now, to make their method really stick, the new critics had to draw some pretty clear lines in the sand. They came up with 2 major errors in thinking, what they called fallacies, that every good reader, in their view, absolutely had to avoid. So first up is the intentional fallacy. This basically says it's a huge mistake to interpret a work based on what you think the author was trying to do. It doesn't matter if the author wrote in a letter that they wanted a poem to be about sadness. The only question that matters is, does the poem itself, through its words, its rhythm, its imagery, actually create that feeling of sadness? The author's intention is irrelevant.
All right, the second big rule is called the affective fallacy. Now, this one isn't about the author, it's about you, the reader. This fallacy says it's an error to judge a poem based on the emotional reaction it creates in you. So, just because a poem gives you goosebumps or makes you feel nostalgic, that doesn't mean the poem's objective meaning is nostalgia. Your personal feelings are separate from the actual formal qualities of the work.
So, if you put these two rules together, you can see they're basically building a fortress around the text. The intentional fallacy puts up a wall between the text and the author, telling you, don't worry about what they meant. And the affective fallacy puts up a wall between the text and the reader, saying don't focus on how it makes you feel. All you're left with is the text itself, the work, alone.
Okay, I know what some of you might be thinking. This all sounds pretty abstract, maybe a little too academic. But here's the kicker. The legacy of new criticism is all around us. In fact, it has almost certainly shaped the way you yourself were taught how to read.
Just think about it for a second. Have you ever, in any English class, been told to support your argument with evidence from the text? Has a teacher ever written in the margins of your paper, prove it, or show me where it says that? Well, if you have, then congratulations, you are a direct heir of the new critics. You've been practicing their central lesson without even realizing it.
Now, as the top dog theory in universities, new criticism really had its moment in the 1940s and 50s. By the 60s and 70s, other theories came along that wanted to bring history, politics, and social context back into the picture. But, and this is the important part, its influence as a core skill we teach in the classroom remains incredibly high. That basic practice of close reading is still fundamental. When you boil it all down, what new criticism really did was give generations of students and readers a toolkit. It gave us the tools to look at a work of art with incredible precision and to build an argument based on actual evidence from the page. It truly did transform how we study literature, forever. But, and this is a big but, it leaves us with one final lingering question. By building those walls around the text, by treating it like this perfect isolated object, what are we choosing to ignore? What important stories about history, about society, about the person who created the work? What might we be missing? That's something worth thinking about the next time you're asked to find evidence in the text.